Divorced men of Reddit, what moment with your former wife made you think, yup, I'm asking this girl to divorce me? Not me, but one of my best friends got his permission to post. He got a pretty substantial year-end bonus from work. He decided to use most of it for his wife's Christmas gift and pay off her remaining student loans, $14,700, and the remaining portion to buy a new computer chair for when he gamed, $300. Christmas morning, he was nice enough to let me stay at his place when I traveled for work, as he lived 20 minutes from the airport. We all woke up and had breakfast. His family and her parents came over and we started exchanging gifts. Besides paying off her loans, he had gotten her a few times items. She opened the card saying her loans were paid off. She just sat there for a minute. After the silence, and assuming she was kinda in shock, she asked, "Did you seriously not get me anything else? I bought you that stupid keyboard, the wrong one by the way, and you only got me a few things?" At that point, his brother-in-law and I decided to go hang out in another room for a while. They ended up getting into a huge fight. A day later, when he was dropping me off at the airport, he told me that he was going to visit a lawyer and get a divorce. Semi-related. I'd been seeing a girl for 6 months. I knew she was unstable and explosive, but I was in love with her good side and also an idiot. She convinces me to move in with her, then convinces me we need a new kitchen, a new bathroom, a new couch, new TV, and she also needs a driver's license. Since she was permanently broke, I paid for all of it, as a good boyfriend does. Then I broke my leg. She took care of me for a few days, then said I could do my own grocery shopping and make my own dinner since she wasn't my mother. Mind you, we lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building and there was no elevator, while I was up to my knee in a cast. The week after, she went out with friends most nights in the week, using my car, and told me to do all the groceries. When I didn't, she yelled at me that I was just leeching off her, that I was lazy, a worthless sack of crap just laying there on the couch, that I bought, that she always had to do everything and I never got her anything. I turned down the TV, that I bought, and for the first time since we'd met, I gave in, let the hate flow through me, and blasted her with everything she did. Just yelling from the couch, but it felt great letting it all out. She then kicked me out for insulting her and told me she'd been having an affair with another dude from work all week anyway. Fun times. My wife was around less and less, had to be free to live her life, go out with her friends. More often than not, she would call me to pick our daughter up from daycare. After promising to pick her up and have some girl time, just tell her I'm working late or not feeling well. She always had something better to do and the kids were old enough to know better. I went to pick our daughter up one day. When they called her name, she came running over until she saw it wasn't Mom, again, slumped her shoulders and slowly walked over to ask what's her excuse this time. That was the breaking point, told her to get out, even helped pay her security deposit to get her out. This one hits close to home with me. My dad and Mom were never married, and I was 2 when they broke up, but Mom was supposed to be there for me. She would make all sorts of promises to come to hang out with me and pick me up and do things, but 9 times out of 10 she wouldn't show. I remember getting excited if she showed up for one of my birthdays. How sad is that? She should have been there regardless. And she always had these dumb excuses as to why she couldn't come. Broke my heart. My mom has been dead for 3 years now. I'm 22, and all I can think about when I think of her is, I hope I never damage a child the way she damaged me. Tell your daughter some internet stranger sends her empathetic love. During the last year and a half of our marriage, she became extremely psychologically abusive. She was a narcissist, controlled my every move, would isolate me, refused physical contact. I was just an extension to her life. Was not allowed to talk to any female, was not allowed to hang out with any friends, or she would ignore me for up to 5 days at a time. Double standards everywhere, verbal abuse, and the list can continue, but it hurts to think about. The last straw for me was when she threatened to kill me because I came home from work late even though she knew I would be home late. It was just a little too late for her, and she also threatened to hit me the same day. This was the second time this happened, and I talked with several people at work about it and they suggested that I run. I had texts of the threats on my phone and contacted a lawyer that same week. She agreed to sign since I told her I would take severe legal action if she didn't. Thankfully no children and it was a clean divorce and I'm happily divorced. We met and spent the first 7 years of our married life on the West Coast, then moved east. 5 years later I took a job back on the West Coast, but it was the middle of the school year, so I went out ahead and lived on my own until everyone could join me. Things hadn't been very good between us for a while, but I hadn't articulated it to her, or even myself, beyond vague feelings of dissatisfaction. One weekend, out there on my own, I decided to take a day and drive to one of my favorite towns, a town in which I had lived long before I knew her, a town we had visited often while married. It was late afternoon, was about to head back to my hotel when I realized that I could visit a particular beach that had special meaning to me from my earlier life there. I stopped at a convenience store, grabbed a Grolsch like I used to drink on that beach, and drove out there. Hiked out to a specific spot I remembered, sat down, popped the beer, and looked out over the ocean. And it hit me that I hadn't done that in over 20 years. Whenever we'd visit the area, I'd suggest stopping at the beach, but she wasn't interested and would always veto the idea. I'm sure reading this seems like the tiniest thing, but it was the catalyst for me to realize just how completely dissatisfied I was with our relationship. I think from the time I sat down, I knew it was over within maybe 10 minutes. Just sitting there, sipping my beer, looking at the ocean. Edit. Grolsch is indeed a Dutch beer. It can be had in distinctive green bottles with hinged, resealable ceramic caps. I chose it because when I had lived in that place before and had headed out to that specific beach with friends, I'd always bring Grolsch. 15 years in and I find texts on her phone. Completely blindsided. No clue she had it in her to cheat. Told me it was just texting and she begged for forgiveness and I caved. A month later I checked the phone bill to find that it never stopped. Confronted her again. Cue more begging and more denial on my part that she would let the life we had built go down in flames. This went on for a few months. So many promises. One night I caught her on the phone when she thought I had left. Suddenly it's not just texts. Sometimes it was phone calls too. Just a friend she could talk to that she let things go too far with. She promised to break all contact and swore it was never physical. Then I found emails where she detailed things that made me sick to read. But also included descriptions of his house. She broke finally but swore it was all just in the line of duty. That's how she met him. Visiting nurse service and this guy was a client. Promised she was done. I thought she loved me and no chance was she going to let 15 years go like that. I wasn't buying it anymore though. She announced she was going out one night with a work friend. Promised they were only going to the bar then she'd be home. Maybe late but not too late. She had taken over her own phone account by then but wasn't bright enough to understand that Google Latitude was still showing me where she was, and I wasn't about to show my hand. She kissed me goodbye and beelined right for his house and was there until the wee hours of the morning. Once I knew where she had headed, I called her dad and my best friend to keep me from doing anything dumb. I will love them both forever for keeping me calm while my world went insane all around me. My father-in-law offered to stay with the kids and wait for her to get home. Around 3 a.m. while couch surfing at my buddy's place, she sent me a nasty text asking where the heck I thought I was. I texted her a screenshot of her little GPS dot at her boyfriend's and let her know I'd be sending her some paperwork soon. She started working at a job with people that were closer to her age, 25 to 30, instead of a job where her coworkers were in their late 40s to early 50s. She wanted to go out and hang out with them rather than come home and be with her family, myself and our at the time 2-year-old daughter and a godforsaken cat that she just had to have. There were a lot of other little things that added up over time, mainly her desire to drink and drive, without our daughter in the car thankfully, and 4 days a week of not coming home until 2 or 3 in the morning and not telling a soul where she was or what she was doing. After a month of that, she said she wanted a divorce. I fought it with everything I had for 3 months. Decided to go to counseling, where the counselor asked her, ex-wife, in your mind is this marriage already over? After a literal 5-minute silence, I had the answer I needed. Separated a week later and divorced a year later. We're still civil for our daughter's sake. But I will say that after the initial shock of actually going through a divorce after us both proclaiming to do whatever it takes and never getting a divorce, I will say I'm much happier now. I was able to save up and buy a house for my daughter and me, which I never would have been able to do had I stayed married. I'd found evidence of potential cheating. Despite this, I still was willing to work on things. I confronted her about her feelings towards me, not the cheating. When I point blank asked her if she was interested in counseling or trying to work things out, she said no. That was the first time. It would have been better to have stuck with it. There was a tumultuous time after that where we flip-flopped and were trying to work things out, sorta. She complicated things. I had broached the cheating with her and we made rules during our maintenance period. One of which was that she was no longer to have contact with her friend she was cheating with. I ended up finding out that she was still Facebook friends with him. When I calmly explained why this would hurt me, she turned it around that I was the bad guy. I started living with a friend at this point. During my drunk and half-sobbing tirade where I explained everything to him, I finally realized that I don't want to be with this woman anymore. She doesn't love, respect, or care for me at all, and I deserve those things. Moved out, moved on, and have since found a wonderful woman that I will marry in April. Even though I figured I would never get married again. Edit, I got hurt, it sucked really bad. I never expected to get a divorce. I took some time to work on myself and address the mistakes that I made in my marriage and past relationships. I ended up finding a person who 100% is in sync with me and communicates like a mature adult. She is super smart and helps me through my emotions as I help her through hers. I did a complete 180 on marriage. It wasn't a struggle, it feels right. I thought long and hard after I had decided to get married. I wanted to make sure I was not making the same mistakes again. I believe I found my true partner, and each day gives me more reasons to believe that to be true. I always refused to raise my voice during arguments, which usually made her crazier and scream louder. After one such argument, during which our 3-year-old daughter was playing upstairs, she heard us. She started coming down at the same time her mother was storming up the stairs like a child of comparable age. Our daughter was in the way and her mother got in her face and screamed, "I hate you, move." Of course my daughter came to me, hurt. That was the moment I decided it was over. Edit, this was 13 years ago, my daughters are now 16 and 12. Unfortunately, I found out the hard way that particularly in that day and age, family courts were seriously skewed towards the favor of the mother in many cases unless there was proof of serious neglect, drug abuse, or physical abuse. The girls, I believe, are fairly well adjusted and doing okay. Their mother changed in regards to her direct dealings with them, however, continued and still uses them as a way to hurt me whenever she sees an opportunity. I've taken her to court for custodial interference, which is punishable by up to 30 days in jail and a $1,000 fine, and they slapped her on the wrist with not so much as an admonishment. It's messed up, but I do the best to keep an eye on the situation and try to give them as much stability as possible when they're around me, so they have an idea of what normal is. My ex and I were always having ups and downs. Cutting up my clothes when I was out with friends, cutting my hair when I was asleep, random violence and screaming fits. The usual. We did the normal things couples were supposed to do, and it seemed to prolong the episode for a time. We bought a house, for example. Well, after we had the house, the next thing we needed was a cat. She loved it very much when it was a kitten, but as it grew up it became more independent. That's how cats are, and she couldn't take this and become aggressive towards it. I remember walking in one day and she picked up the cat and threw it up in the air. It bounced off of the ceiling and then I threw her out of the house, bouncing her crap off the curb. She had lost her job again after quitting a decent one because she didn't get along with her boss. Anyways, a few months go by and I'm doing everything: cooking, laundry, dishes, yard work, etc. I'd ask the kids, what does mom do all day, and they said she plays on the computer all day. So the final straw came when I came home from work and had to wash dishes so I could make dinner. Dinner is made, so I tell the family it's ready. She comes to get a plate and serves herself first instead of our youngest child, who was 4 at the time and couldn't serve himself. As I watched this unfold, it dawned on me. If I'm going to do all the work, I might as well do it by myself or find a partner to share the load with, because she clearly didn't want to be on my team. Edit, to those mentioning depression, yes, she was and maybe still is. She was on meds for it, and we went to counseling after the birth of one of our kids because she had postpartum depression. At this time she stepped out on our marriage with at least 3 guys. I finally got proof with a hidden caller ID and a voice-activated tape recorder hidden under our bed. Yep, got to hear them sleeping together. It's a long story, but we stayed together. I don't know if the counseling helped or not. I also need to add that she was never good with money. Blew a small inheritance in record fashion. She would give me money for joint bills and I was handing it back over so she could put gas in her car, or she had a bill of hers due. One year we got a nice tax refund and she promptly tells me she owes her stepdad $2,000. What the F? Still stayed. In short, my earlier response was to original post's question, and the edit is some background so you know that this was something that had been building for years. I didn't want a divorce when I realized her drinking was becoming a serious problem. I didn't want a divorce when she ended up comatose from liver failure. I didn't want a divorce when the hospital bills broke through the $1 million cap. I didn't want a divorce when she came out of the coma and tried to get her life back on track. I didn't want a divorce when she became addicted to opioids. I didn't want a divorce when she became addicted to Ambien. I didn't want a divorce when her pill doctor was arrested and she couldn't get her drugs anymore. I didn't want a divorce when she started drinking again. I didn't want a divorce when I was broke, unemployed and hopeless, and all I could think of was how to keep food in our kitchen and my son in school. It was then I realized that if she went back up north and lived in the same town as her large family, she could get the help necessary to get better and I could reduce expenses and see our son graduate high school. The moment I said, "Yup, I want a divorce," was the day she left. Her brother had come down and would drive a U-Haul back up north with her and her stuff. That day she decided and became adamant that she was taking our only vehicle as well. We lived 13 miles from supermarkets, fast food, gas stations, etc., and 26 miles from my son's school. Not having a vehicle wasn't an option, so I stood my ground. She got so mad and we fought so hard that my son got involved, screaming at her that she can't stand us and she needed to leave right now. So she left. And I started getting back on my feet. The following year I flew her back for her son's graduation. We were cordial and had a pretty good time, then she left. And that's the last I heard from her, until the following year when I was served divorce papers. We're now divorced, I've moved and I'm back to being confident and successful. I've talked to her once or twice since then. And I'm happier than I've ever been. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching, see you on the next video.